Welcome to the Matt and Sean 365 Refresh Show. Coming from the East Coast of the U.S., my name is Matt Wade.
And coming from the West Coast, I'm Sean Bugler. And it was finally happened, Matt. You finally... all of the things that have happened with this global pandemic, that have happened with just me at home, you finally dragged me onto YouTube. So
welcome. It is just, everybody has a podcast. Now we have a podcast. So we're just going to go forward and be like everybody else. It's going to be amazing. This is episode 1 of the MS Refresh, we'll call it. And we are going to try to make this a nice weekly overview at the very beginning of the week for people that work in the Microsoft cloud. Whether you're an admin, everyday user, I don't really care. I want people to stay up to date on all the things that change, which is like everything all the time. This show is basically going to be a nice little quick overview of the news, things that are happening, changing, adding, deleting in the Microsoft 365 roadmap, which Sean will give us an overview of that. And then we're going to kind of take a couple items out of the list each week and do a little deep dive, give you a little opinion on how we feel about those things. Are they worth it? Are they little gems, diamonds in the rough that you may not be aware of? And then move on to some community aspects. I think community in this world is actually really important. We can be a little bit cynical once in a while, but actually one of the very, very positive aspects of working in this field is the people that I have been lucky enough to meet and interact with worldwide. That would include Sean. The only reason I even know Sean is because of places that we've been to together and shared meals, broke bread, had drinks, experienced culture, all of that kind of stuff. So we're going to cover upcoming events in the next month that we're discussing, and then kind of cover a cool community resource out there that you might not be aware of. And then we'll close out. The aim here is we're going to try to keep this 15 minutes. So every Monday morning, you can just kind of dive in, get a little bit of an overview on that Monday morning, your local time, press play, and you can kind of go from there. So with that, Sean, I'm going to pass it over to you for the news. What's happening this week in the Microsoft cloud world?
This is the news. Microsoft has announced that the To-Do app for iPhone and Android will be receiving iOS 14 widget support starting in December of 2020. So for those of you who are constantly asking yourselves the question, what am I doing today? Look no further than December of 2020 for all your needs. Keeping on with Microsoft To-Do, Microsoft has announced that starting in February of 2021, they'll be rolling out a new sharing experience that involves inviteless sharing, allowing individuals to share by name or email ID, as opposed to the current email invitation structure that they currently support. Microsoft Forms has announced they're working on new text formatting options, including the ability to bold, italicize, and underline for forms and quizzes. This functionality should be rolling out next month, December 2020. Outlook for iOS and Android is working on the new reactions functionality. For those of you who don't know, you currently have the ability to like emails. Microsoft is working on the ability to not just like or thumbs up, but also heart, laugh, celebrate, or shed a tear in reaction to emails as opposed to, replying to them. Microsoft Teams, meeting recordings saved to OneDrive and SharePoint, will be rolling out in January of 2021 for GCC customers. For those of you that exist in the commercial world, or Microsoft 365 as you generally know it, this functionality has already been in the process of rolling out over the past couple of weeks. Opt in. That said, our government friends will be receiving this functionality in the next couple of weeks, so things to look forward to there. Microsoft has announced they're working on new data at rest encryption for Microsoft 365. This will allow for customer data that exists starting with Microsoft Teams files, chat messages, chat notifications, etc. to be encrypted at rest. This is just the beginning, Microsoft says. They'll be rolling out this functionality projected in March 2021. More information is coming. Moving on from new items and up to updated items, Microsoft has announced that the SharePoint lists and libraries ability to configure headers, footers, and the body using custom formatting will be rolling out starting now. So this is really, really exciting stuff. This will allow you to provide a little bit more context and structure within the new item form experience for both lists and libraries. Just marked as launched, super exciting, the new Files view in Outlook on the web. For those of you that already use OA, in the bottom left-hand corner, the ability to jump between your inbox, your calendar, your contacts, to do, well, you can tack on files to that experience as well. This is rolling out now and should be available worldwide in the coming weeks. Microsoft is now talking a little bit more so about the people-centric search. This is kind of an enhanced experience that many of you, for those of you who are familiar with Delve, may already be somewhat familiar with. The ability to search around specific individuals, to zoom in and search the enterprise graph around particular individuals that you may work with. Finally, in the Microsoft Roadmap Update section, we've got the Microsoft Graph. New privacy controls are being worked on, anticipated to be rolled out in January of 2021. This will allow administrators to enable granular control over exactly how Microsoft Graph insights are surfaced to the average end user. This is important functionality when you consider the perceptions that may come and privacy concerns that already exist within an organization. Let's go ahead and turn our attention over to the Message Center. On November 21st, Microsoft announced that they are expanding the SharePoint branding options to further enable the ability to customize the SharePoint site. Two notable functionalities that are being enabled are the extended header, which will allow for background images, as well as the ability to manage the alignment of the site title or even hide it entirely. Microsoft Forms is rolling out specific user sharing starting next month. This will enable you to make forms available not just internally or to anybody, but allow you to target specific users or security groups if only specific individuals need to actually complete a form. Microsoft Lists are rolling out the ability to enable rules. Now, many of you who have already worked with Power Automate know this is functionality that has been available to some degree, but not nearly to this level of granularity. And finally, Microsoft Teams virtual breakout rooms have been I'm sorry, I'm just getting this in. Has been delayed one more week. Rollout will begin early December. It is expected the rollout will complete at the end of December. This is a highly anticipated feature that will allow meeting organizers to split the meetings into smaller virtual breakout rooms to enable people to collaborate in smaller groups as part of a broader meeting. And that's all we've got for you here with the news. Back to you, Matt.
All right. Sounds good, Sean. So what is your favorite or, let's say, most, pedantic one that you'd like to talk about?
I want to start with the reactions. The ability to like an email has been something that's been around for a long time. But I love that they're taking it a step further and they're going to let us react with even more emotion, let's call it.
Yep. Are they giving us the reaction options that are in Teams, or are they giving us the ones that are in Yammer? Or the ones that are in LinkedIn?
My understanding is it's going to be Teams-esque, but not full-on Teams. As with everything, they'll probably start with their own collection of it and eventually align, similar to the fluid framework we're seeing in Teams.
It's so I understand. I'll make the argument, especially when I'm presenting at conferences or training, on how to use reactions in Teams. Like, the thumbs up to me is actually really useful because the number of people that will send back a response in an email to a reply all that's like, got it, thanks, okay. Like, all of those literally are just basically a thumbs up, right?
Right.
But the additional reactions are nice, kitschy, I don't know, whatever word, it depends on the context, I guess. But at least I could justify it and say, hey, anybody who has a question on how to use these, just say, how would I use them on Facebook? Because Facebook uses exactly those ones. But then they rolled out the reactions to Yammer just like a month ago, or doing so now. And here I am thinking it's going to be the same ones as Teams. It's not. And you'd think, hey, the other Microsoft property, or at least acquisition, LinkedIn, has its own separate set of reactions, which is different from Facebook, which kind of makes sense, professional versus personal experiences in life. But Yammer is supposed to be a LinkedIn, not really a Facebook. But they chose something different from LinkedIn and Facebook and Teams. And I don't understand why. Those teams really kind of have to bash their heads together and just say, let's pick one, or at least let's have a set of 4 that are similar or the same across all of them. And you have 2 extra on, others maybe. I don't know. But I do appreciate the not having to flood my email inbox with a bunch of got it, thanks, okay, see you then, those types of things. I don't know, from my perspective.
Yeah, I reserve judgment. I think this is a solution in search of a problem.
Fair enough.
I've never said to myself as I read an email, if only I could put a heart on this.
I know, right? Yeah. You really have to show your boss that you just love their work. It's just really important. One that stood out for me was meeting recordings, which you said is now coming out for GCC. I don't think people really understand how meeting recordings in Teams actually works with the new foundation of SharePoint and OneDrive. That's something that right now it's an opt-in, so the administrator of your tenant has to turn that on and run a PowerShell script. And eventually, within a couple months, it's going to become an opt-out. And then after that, Microsoft's going to turn it on and you have no option to even avoid it at all. There is a weird 2 or 3 month interregnum between when you are going to have these files in OneDrive and SharePoint using the, forgive me, but very crappy video playback experience in SharePoint and OneDrive, right, versus the Stream experience. So right now, if you're using Stream, the video portal, and you have a meeting recording, that recording might have you might have turned captions on, so you have a transcript. The transcript automatically gets uploaded with the video file into Stream, so it's nice. You actually have that experience, but you can't share it externally, and that was the big gripe from everybody. And this new OneDrive SharePoint thing makes the external sharing and also retention policies and other security policies that may be above a lot of people's heads from the everyday perspective. Those things can now apply because it's just a file. It's not a Stream experience or Stream, object any longer, which is great, except now you kind of have to pick. Do I prefer the Stream experience and dealing with not being able to externally share, or is external sharing my priority? Now, a couple months down the road, you'll finally have it's stored in SharePoint or OneDrive, and when you press play, it will come up looking like Stream. Do you actually know when a file or a recording is stored in SharePoint versus OneDrive?
No. What is the nuance there?
Oh,
is that
it's so
when
much fun.
When it's scheduled within a team versus when an individual schedules a meeting?
100%. Ding, ding, ding. Oh. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's channel meetings versus private meetings or a scheduled meeting. If you do a channel meeting, the file gets saved in a folder called recordings that gets automatically created in the Files tab of that channel, and that's SharePoint. If I create a meeting like between you and me in Teams, and I decide to press record, it's going to record it into my OneDrive for Business. Now, the fun part about all this is
none of that was the fun part.
Well, I mean, it just gets more and more fun. The really fun part about this is now it matters who presses record, because whoever presses record owns the file from that point forward. So you might be the owner of the appointment, but if somebody presses record before you, they own the recording, and it could be a random person, right? Like they just decided to record,
I'm just gonna race to hit record every single time.
Oh yeah, you take full control over it, and it's like totally yours from that point forward. It's kind of an interesting one in that respect. So I don't know.
That's wild.
Yep. So that's one I don't think people really realize exactly what the implications are there. You have to look at your priorities, at least for the next few months. Do you need external sharing, or do you want the experience of Stream? You can still have the Stream experience, but you have to take that file from OneDrive or SharePoint and then upload it into the Stream portal, grab the transcript from Teams, and upload that into the Stream portal as well if you go forward with it. So just some interesting things there that I don't think people really know what they're getting into.
No, I think you're 100% right. One of the things that I wanted to key in on that we kind of talked about during the news was the graph privacy settings. Speaking as the de facto Office 365 admin in my organization, sure, that's been a huge challenge, has been surmounting the perception of graph invasiveness. I think about all of our contracting lives in SharePoint as an example, and we use a third-party layer on top of it that I had no choice in. But ostensibly, if you have access to the contracting system, you have access to all the contract records. Now, we're a government agency, so
yeah, theoretically FOIA and all that stuff.
Everything should be in sunlight, anyways. But I've had many a call from an executive that is, I can see all of these contract records. Does this mean that other people can see these contract records as well? And the answer is kind of. Right? They technically have permission.
Oh, that's a great answer too. Kind of.
Right. And that's, I think, I'm really excited to see what these kind of enhanced privacy controls look like. Not just through the lens of my own personal experience, but also kind of in light of, I don't know if you've seen the flack that Microsoft has been catching for the productivity scores and things to that effect. Have you seen this?
I have not, actually, no.
There's this interesting thing happening in kind of, we'll call it mainstream news, where people have clued into the fact that Microsoft has these really in-depth productivity scores and analytics on a per user basis across the entire Microsoft 365 suite.
Right. Which would be sort of like the My Analytics and Workplace Analytics concept, right?
Exactly right. And you talk about the value that holds as an admin or as somebody who's trying to promote adoption. But we're really starting to see now the conversation taking place from the perspective of the person who didn't know down to how many meetings you have on your calendar and how many people you interact with, what's being tracked, what's available for your boss or your admin to see. Now, for example, in my organization, we don't really dive into it like that, but it's interesting to see how that perception will evolve the privacy considerations that Microsoft has going forward. It's definitely one of those like jazzy features where it's when like we support this and you go, oh, that's neat. It's like buying new gym clothes. You're like, I'm definitely going to use this.
I can relate.
Sounds a little close to home for me lately.
Yep, I can relate. All right, well, thank you. That's awesome. Really good discussion on some of those topics. So let's bring it over to the community aspect now for our episode, for the first episode of our show here. So upcoming the rest of December of 2020, we have a number of online events coming up. The first is going to be on right on December 1st is Collab 365. GlobalCon 4 is online. Collab Days Winter Across the Alps is a Central European, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, I think. I think both in German and English. Event on December 5th. There's going to be an M365 Saturday, Ahmedabad, on December 5th. AvePoint M365 Community Talks webinar, December 8th and 9th. That's going to be set up across the world, so you can join in EMEA, the European side of the world, the American side of the world, or the APAC side of the world, 8th and 9th. The M365 Collaboration Virtual Conference. This is the SharePoint conference that used to exist in like the March, April, May timeframe, has rebranded to the Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference. And now they've been doing a number of online conferences. This one I don't believe is free, but the stature of the people that typically presented this is really high. So if you're looking for even just everyday how to best use SharePoint to build some internet pages or best organize your files and things like that, even if you don't do administrative stuff, it's still potentially going to be really useful for you. So if you have some professional development time or money left over, that's a good one to look at. And then on December 12th, M365 Saturday Bangalore. After that, I have no events that I'm aware of that are above the level of user group, but if you're aware of any, please, by all means, let me know in the comments, because I do keep a running list of this, which you can get the link in, below in the comments. But after December 12th, probably would make sense. Christmas is going to kind of shimmy up in the end of the new, or end of the old year.
Are we still having Christmas?
I know, and bring on 2021, please. So yeah, if you know of any other events, by all means, let me know. I will add it to the list, but you can find the full list, including also upcoming events in 2021, including there are a number that are hedging at this point, and they are scheduling these to happen in person. So hopefully we'll see some real progress with vaccine. Yep, fingers crossed. And we'll see travel happening again and people interacting and feeling safe, within 6 feet of each other. And that brings us next to the part 2 of our community topic for today, which is the community content of the week. I want to give a nice shout out to Patrick Feninger, who's a friend of mine out in Austria. He does a weekly podcast called the Microsoft Roadmap Roundup. It's actually kind of an inspiration for this show. It is a weekly 3-minute overview of all the news coming from the roadmap and other resources as to what changes are taking place. We decided to kind of jump in this and do more of a deep dive concept into it, but I still listen to it every week. And if you speak German, there's also a German version because he's from Germany and lives in Austria. But a lot shorter, easy listening. Your commute to work, whether that's a drive or if it's walking from one room of your house to the other. You're saying that
this isn't easy listening?
This point, it's 15, 16, probably 17 minutes this time.
How easy do you get?
3. I mean, hey, what are you going to do? But anyway, Patrick, really great guy, knows his stuff, and is really good at putting this stuff together. Has a great blog and list of infographics, all that kind of cool stuff. So grab the link to his podcast in the video description below. And with that, Sean, I'll pass it back to you.
That about does it for us, Matt. Episode 1, done.
Awesome. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah. As always, for those of you that are familiar with Matt's videos, a like and a subscribe is sincerely appreciated. We could appreciate both the numbers going up and your attention. Yeah, but also if there's anything that we mentioned that we didn't talk about that you'd like to hear more about, or if you disagree with either Matt or I've said before and I'll say again, we'll fight you.
Yeah, leave a
drop
comment
it into the comments and bring it on.
We'll fight you.
Yeah. I say it's not a threat, it's a promise. That's my dad used to say.
Course, right. Definitely.
But yeah, that about does it. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
Yes, let's get to it. All right. Oh, God. My Roomba. Gary, get back in your room.
iRobot strikes again.
Everybody wants to be a star.
Oh, God.